to truly appreciate you for being there. Okay, let me briefly share why we're consulting in this session together. 229 Consulting, forward thinking consulting organization committed to helping institutions understand the use of technology effectively, especially in emerging tools like artificial intelligence. Please confirm if you can speak.
Yeah, Hassan, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
At 229 Consulting, our goal is simple but powerful. We are here to bridge the gap between technology and everyday people, ensuring that no one, especially Nigerians, are left behind in this rapidly changing digital world. This training today is part of that commitment. We're here to help parents understand AI not as something scary or complicated, but as a practical tool that can support learning, productivity, and better academic outcomes for children. We understand the reality that many parents face today. Children preparing for WAEC, JAM, exams, and the likes. We have the concerns about phone usage, fractions, and social media. But then we have these questions around AI, ChatGPT, and what exactly are our children doing online? And then the fear of not wanting our children to fall behind, while also not wanting them to use technology. Now, this session is designed to address these exact concerns. We believe that AI should support education and not replace it. Now, parents should be informed and confident, not focused, not confused or afraid. And then whether we like AI is it, our children are already interacting, sometimes without our guidance. But then the real question is not should our children use AI. The real question is how do we guide them to use it wisely, responsibly, and improve their learning? This is exactly what the session is about. I can still go on, but then I would like to introduce our facilitator for today's session to you. He's not just an ordinary AI expert. Our facilitator today understands both technology and education and how it works well in Nigeria's economy today. His name is Murtala Adamu, and he works closely with digital tools and has experience helping people understand how AI can be used practically, not just theory. Today, Murtala will break down what AI really is in simple terms. He will show you parents how AI to support homework, revision, and exam preparation. You know what? At this point, I feel like I'm going to work. I'd like us to give warm welcome to Africa, Murtala or Adamu. Murtala.
Thank you very much, Hassan. Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you all for making time to attend this webinar. It really is an opportunity to interact, and discuss, on the benefits of AI and how AI actually helps in supporting smarter learning. I mean, we can all acknowledge that the fact that today AI has really come in and is, disrupting a lot of our daily expectations, the things we're used to doing. Education itself is not free of that reality. So, of course, the smart parent is the one who really, tries to understand how this particular, innovation can support their own kids, helping them mold a better future. When we were discussing about this particular webinar, we were talking about the experience of parents when your child comes home with an assignment and suddenly tells you, Mommy, Daddy, can you help me with this? And then you suddenly realize there's a block, you're not able to, sort of, figure out what is happening in that particular question the child has come with. So I think that's, one of the things that sort of, brought about this. How do you as a parent, get the necessary tool to be able to support your kid and equally, give your kid that edge and advantage in school and, in their daily life as well. So I think on that note, we will proceed. On on to looking at what this whole session is about today. Like I mentioned, it's about empowering you, the parents, with the necessary skills and tools to be able to support your kids. The goal is to really show you how you can better support and empower your kids. It's designed specifically for Nigerians, looking at some of the changes that is coming on in terms of education through the Ministry of Education and other education agencies. It's also designed to give that simplicity and then provide the safe environment which we all want our children to be in. Of course, there's a reality that as it has always been with the internet, trying to manage the internet and make it a safe space for your kids. So we're very much aware of that, and we are going to show you how you can easily use that. I would really indulge parents to make this interactive so that it's fun and we could all learn together. Now, talking about it, the 229, the organization itself, 229 Consulting, bringing this to you, who we are, what we do, and why we are doing this. We are an education technology and advisory firm. We've been working with schools and parents and even students in trying to bring about how they can easily use AI tools to improve and get the better side of their education. Ultimately, our goal is to bridge the traditional education as we know it with today's digital tools and skills that have become prevalent, and also really move on to the global scale, move on to the global level of what is being applied internationally. Now that's the goal. We have the proven experience. We've worked with schools, we have a deep understanding of the Nigerian context, how education is different in Nigeria, from what it is in other climes. So, of course, in all the, solutions and, consulting we've been doing, we're doing it with the particular intent to, align it with the realities of the environment we find ourselves. Our trainings and our solutions are very practical and friendly. It's designed to take you from beginner to expert level, of course, over a period of time. And then this boils down to our ultimate commitment of helping the Nigerian kid learn smarter, not through shortcuts, but learn smarter. Basically taking advantage of the tools today, to become a better learner. You could easily ascribe it to, for example, how the calculator came and made, making solving equations easier. Basically, how the people of that time took advantage of that, and that is what we are aiming to do with AI today. Now, this session, it's part of our GenAI adoption school initiative, which we've developed basically to help schools. Our understanding is, you don't just go to the schools, you need to be able to interact with the parents and help them as well. And in doing that, that is what is going to help us, empower our students to learn smarter, create freely, and use AI responsibly. So yeah, having said that, what is it we are going to cover in this session? We're going to look at what AI really is, not the idea that people have of it being some magical tool or some, manipulative tool or something like that. We're really going to look at what AI is and, how it can help us achieve what it is we aim to achieve, that is making our children learn smarter. So we're going to go on to that. After looking at what AI is, we're going to look at how children can learn smarter with AI. Then we're going to go on to having some demonstrations. We're going to look at, for example, how to use AI in solving maths problems, physics problems, how to use it to prepare for exams, writing, argumentative, narrative, descriptive essays, amongst others. And then we're going to ultimately move on to looking at, okay, what next after this, which is, in our case, the GenAI Bootcamp program for our kids. And then finally, we're going to talk about, we're going to have questions and answers and how, of course, we can onboard onto the GenAI Bootcamp program. Now, to start with, what really is AI? I mean, we've all heard it. We probably all have our own definitions. Probably, if I asked you to, in fact, why not? Probably you could just, put it in the comment section and tell us what your own thought about AI is. What do you think AI really is? Is it the robots we see that are being developed in China? Or is it, what, for example, SpaceX is doing or Elon Musk is doing with his robotaxis? Is that what AI really is? Or is it even just exclusively about ChatGPT and all of that? We're going to, try and, have some understanding of what it is. Basically, in our context, just to keep it, within the context of what we are discussing, we're going to look at it from the education perspective. AI really is a smart assistant. You can look at it as that assistant, that helper you have always, by your side, that you could easily hit up and say, hey man, what's this? What is happening here? What is going on here? It's that really that smart assistant. For me, when I use AI in my work and everything, I look at it as that, friend or that colleague, that guy that I can just hit up and say, hey man, what is this? How can this be done? Okay, or what is happening here? It's really that, idea that, you could use in looking at AI. And for the kids, it's that friend that they can sit down when trying to solve an equation or when trying to come up with an essay and ask, please, can you give me ideas on this, or what is happening in this equation, or I'm stuck in this problem, how can you help me solve it? Or for you, the parents, you can look at it as that, assistant that you can quickly go to. Your son comes home with a quantitative reasoning assignment. There are some boxes and shapes, and in the question it says what is the next order of shape or number that is supposed to come, and you're suddenly lost. You can look at it as that assistant that you can interact with to try and decipher what is going on in that particular question. Yeah, so that's it. AI is that, friend that helps children understand schoolwork faster. It could be that in a class, the teacher has spoken about a concept, let's say something like an indirect rule when you're looking at it from the perspective of colonialism, yeah? But maybe after the teacher has explained it, your son or daughter is not able to understand it properly. They can actually take advantage of this and have, this AI assistant explain it to them in a better way, in a way that is closer to their own reality from the perspective of maybe an 8-year-old or a 10-year and onwards like that. Yeah, so explain topics in simple languages. Ultimately, it is that, assistant that is there for you 247. Think about it. You could hire a lesson teacher for your kid. You pay some premium amount for that, yeah? But ultimately, that lesson teacher is only available maybe an hour a day. If he's going to come, maybe it's going to be 3 or 4 times a week, or probably only on weekends. And even at that, he's, like I said, only available for 1, 2, or 3 hours. Now, the moment the teacher leaves, your child doesn't have anybody to really put their questions forward to. And for parents, most of us are actually very busy, right? So yeah, this is that tool for the kid that is always there. That is always there. That, okay, yeah, so I could see someone asking if it is being recorded. Hassan, I think you could easily take care of that. But I think it should be. Yeah, so it is that tool that is there 24/7 for your kid. Saturday, Sunday, in the middle of the night, you have that kid that is preparing for jam and he has to study for longer hours on into the night. He could easily hit up and ask these questions. Now, that really is what AI is in our reality today. There are so many of them out there: ChatGPT, Gemini, Cloud, Perplexity. There are so many out there that you can use for a variety of things. However, we should ask ourselves, what can AI really do? I mean, we know there's ChatGPT. Some of us have probably interacted with it, or on your Microsoft Copilot, assistant, you've probably in fact, if you do a simple Google search today, I think at the top, you're probably going to see is the AI response you would first see. So you probably interacted with AI, unknowingly itself, yeah? But what can it do, again, in the perspective of what we are discussing today, education? One very important thing, it can explain homeworks very easily. I don't know how many of us here, probably if you would love to share, you could tell us in the chat section. How many of you here have probably experienced, your younger brother, your son, your daughter coming home with, a midterm assignment, and then they've given this question to the kid, and then he comes to you and tells you, "Mommy, I don't understand. What is this question really saying? Can you explain it to me?" Or a mathematics word problem, a word problem that you need to decipher before you even bring out what equation you're really even trying to solve, and you can't really make sense of it. So yeah, that's one thing AI is really going to help us to. Yeah. And then summarize long notes. In WIAC, for example, you have essays that are going to be given to you in English, and then there is a need to come up with summaries. That's a fundamental problem that a lot of kids really face. You don't know how to go about summarization. Or I don't know, government. Some of us who did government maybe in school, or biology, there is that long note that the teacher is always writing on the board, or gives you some PDF material that you're supposed to study at home. And how do you spend the whole day reading it? There are so many tools out there, for example, like Notebook LLM, that kids today can use in summarizing these long notes. It helps them improve their writing and grammar. A very sweet example would be that narrative essay that your son or daughter has been given to go and write on their culture, or the popular assignment I think most of our kids have probably come home with. Write an essay on your family, talk about mommy, daddy, your siblings, and all of that. These tools can really help them in checking their grammar to see if their sentence construction is done properly, amongst other things. Yeah. So there's also the helping them solve problems on a step-by-step basis, really understanding it. I'll give you an example with the calculator. So if you take the calculator today and you put in an equation, those scientific calculators that we use in WIAC, you could type out the question and then it could solve and give you the answer, right? But in terms of how it arrived at the answer, you most likely don't know, because the calculator does not show you that. This is one fundamental change that we've been able to accomplish with AI today. And so, yeah, you could put in the question, and we'll probably look at that in some of the demos that would go through, solving that problem step by step. That way, your son or daughter doesn't get the answer only, but they understand how it was arrived at. And something that is even cooler that is happening today, everybody has his own way of learning. So there is that child that if you used maybe their popular cartoon character, Ben 10 or Bluey or something like that, to explain a maths problem, they're probably likely to understand it more than if you used, just the common and easy way of explaining. I don't know if some of you have probably come around this joke where they ask a kid, if I gave you 5 naira and I told you to give me 2 naira, what do you have left? And then the child, understands it. But if you had told him just subtract, 2 from 5, he probably misses it. But you see, when it has to do with money, he probably understands it. So basically, that's the idea, Now, another thing is creating study plans. A lot of our kids in the coming year, maybe in the first quarter, they are going to be writing JAM. They're probably writing 4 different, subjects, and they have to study. And how do they prioritize what to study? How do they plan and organize their schedule so that maybe they are not just studying mathematics more and leaving, physics and chemistry? As a parent, you can actually help them create this study plan so that they are better organized and prepared. Yeah. Now, another is assisting with creative projects. Another experience is, your kids are given, take-home assignments, midterm, or, assignments where they are supposed to do some science project. I know in our time we did things like, a volcanic eruption, paper mache, things like that. It's a reality that, as a parent, you probably don't know how to do it yourself. So you need a guide and an assistant, and AI can really help with that here. And we could also, really play around and look at some of these things. Give me a step-by-step guide on how to go about creating, XXX. I was also thinking about this, and I was given an experience I had. I was working some time back, and suddenly my system crashed. I needed to fix it. I needed to get on it right back because the work I was doing was very important then. All I did was basically, use AI, because what happened is I connected it to power, and then the power light, kept on giving different blinks. And using AI, I was able to understand why that was happening, and it gave me a step-by-step guide on how to solve it. You could also try it. Sometimes your phone just decides to do something else, and then you could really, chat up with any of these, interesting models, and it will give you a step-by-step guide on what is going on. In most cases, you really get it right. Now that we've understood what AI can do, the reality is there are many other things AI can't do, because we shouldn't, get carried away with the delusion that AI is all and mighty, it could do everything. One very important reality is it can't replace teachers. Yeah. So yes, despite the fact that you can leverage AI to learn almost everything and anything, the fact is there is still need for that teacher. The teacher is there to provide the morality part of it, the logic part of it, thinking about it, with a human face. Because AI in this case is really just a machine, yeah. It can't apply emotions to the things it does. Another is it can't replace your child's effort. There is need, like we mentioned in the beginning, AI really is an assistant. So there is need for the child to equally put his effort. In this case, discuss with it, try to talk with it, ask questions. It's like you when you bring the lesson teacher. If the child does not come out and sit down with the lesson teacher, then definitely the purpose of the lesson teacher is defeated. It's equally the same thing in this case. If that son or daughter of yours, don't really sit down and interact with it and try to understand the steps and processes, they don't get the full benefit of it. There's also the fact that, it doesn't always give perfect answers. 99% of the time, it will give you the right answer. But that 0 point, yes, I think someone has really given a very good observation here, which is AI hallucination. It hallucinates. Sometimes it just goes on and begins to ramble. You could ask it, tell me about indirect rule in Nigeria, and then it will go about talking about something else. Yeah. Or you could tell it to talk about we could look at a very close to home example. Tell it to tell you about the former president's just concluded administration, and then maybe it could go on and begin rambling about when the president was a military leader then. So you could have some of those funny things, which is why it is important the child, and you, the parent, apply or put in your efforts there. That is, when you get the response, you need to sit down and look it over and really try and understand what it did and make sense of it. So that is very important. AI can't also think for your child. It is just a tool. It is really how you apply it that makes the difference. Yes. So if you see the way the models are designed, you just really have an interface with a prompt that is sitting there. And then you have to really tell it to do something before it can do. So you are applying your thoughts there. If you don't do that, it really wouldn't be able to do anything. And finally, it can't make any moral decisions. It can't make any moral decisions. So it's very important as well for you to, apply the morality, that is you as a parent, or bring in the teacher who uses this tool to help the child do better. So yeah, there's all of that. Now that we've looked at this, we now arrive at what is your role as a parent? Because before you put these tools before your children, it's important for you to equally know what your responsibilities are. It's important we remember always, it is meant for guiding, not replacing your child's learning. It is there to guide your child to learn better, easier, and smarter, but it doesn't replace it. So it guides, it does not do the work. Encourages thinking, it gives ideas, it pushes out things out there for them to know how to do things better, but it doesn't replace it. So as much as possible, we need to work on our kids and help them not just become individuals that go on these prompting machines and say, what is the definition of government, or what is the definition, what is a verb, or things like that, and then just copy the answer and paste. So let's not become the copy and paste we shouldn't make our kids become the copy and paste kind of individuals. Then there's also the fact that we need to set healthy boundaries. So yes, you control usage. For example, just like when you buy your son or daughter a phone, you want to make sure that they're using the phone the right way. So you limit their digital time. You equally have to apply similar instances with how they use AI. Then you also have to make sure that you teach them how to ask the right questions. Let them not just begin prompting anyhow. And I think this is also one of the very important things we cover in 229. We have different prompting techniques, of which I'll share some with you as we have this discussion today. Then there is a need to promote the balance. Do not become overly dependent on it. Always look at it as your assistant. Like we mentioned with the example in the beginning of this session, you have your assistant, and probably some of us as parents have assistants. We don't become, overly lax when we have those assistants. They help us, but they don't take over everything that we do. So ultimately, AI really helps your child, become a smart learner, helps them think critically and grow responsibly without, cutting or, going on shortcuts and all of that. So parents need to be AI experts. You don't just need to be an AI expert, but you need to equally be informed in terms of how to guide your child in this learning journey. Now, there are three simple rules that we would recommend to you, and then you need to really look at. The first rule is try to do it first yourself as a parent or as a kid. So yes, you've been given that mathematics equation, you've been given fraction to break down. What you need to do first is really try to see if you can solve it yourself or encourage your kid to do so themselves. And then it's when you meet a roadblock that you now move on to your assistant and ask. And I think that's the normal practice for a lot of us. Whatever you want to do, you try to do it yourself. If you're too busy, if you have too much on your plate, that is when you give it to your assistant. We could easily apply the same logic here. And what that helps us do is it helps us control our dependence on these tools. Now, secondly, we use AI to understand, not just copy, not copy basically. So yes, you could say, for example, help me come up with an opening paragraph for my essay. It will give you some recommendations, but what you should do in that case is read it, pick from the ideas, and try to make it over into your own words. Yeah. Then finally, always ask, what did you learn at the end? So yes, we use AI, for example, in solving, apologies, I think I like to use mathematics because I'm very excited about it. But the logic here is, you give AI a maths problem, it solves it, and then you understand the step-by-step process on how it went about it. Not just it solving it for you and you just copy the answer and you move on. Yeah. In that way, the kid will never really learn. So it's important, we learn how to match AI use to our child's age and maturity as well. So yeah, how you would allow your primary school child to use AI is significantly more different, or at least you should make sure it is different from how you give it to your child in secondary school or in the university. Yeah. So it's very important you match this age, access to that. I think that has pretty much summarized what AI is. I don't know if there are questions. We could easily take questions now if you'd like to make a contribution. Otherwise, let's move on to the next, which is how AI can learn smarter. Any questions, observations? Yeah. Anybody wants to make some contribution? All right. Okay. So yeah, the question: how children can learn smarter with AI? Yeah. First, we've mentioned it earlier in the beginning. AI helps with homework support. And I think this is, to some extent, one of the most exciting and helpful aspects we could look at it from. AI can help with solving difficult textbooks explanations. I don't know, there are so many of us that have probably interacted with it, even in our university days. You have that idea that has been brought on, that concept, but it doesn't seem to be clear enough. And that is why you would realize, I don't know for some of you if you did it, but for a particular course, you actually have multiple textbooks on it. So you could have general mathematics. There are some other mathematics textbooks out there just to understand one particular concept. You want to look at it from different examples and all of that. So yeah, AI can actually help with that. That is a way more consolidated way of even doing it, and to some extent in a much better way, because like I said earlier, you could actually tell AI to explain a concept to you in a particular context. That way it helps you understand it better. Yeah. Then there's a step-by-step process in solving maths problems. We've spoken about it quite a bit, and then we would even look at it in some of the demonstrations that we're going to look at. How about science problems? You have physics. You want to explain the law of gravity. You want to explain it to your child who is that curious, sweet kid that is out there and comes and says to you, "Mommy, how do I what is gravity? Why is it that whatever you throw up always comes down? Why doesn't it just hang up in the air? Or why is it that planes fly the way they do?" And I think maybe if you've had a trip with your kid or so, they must have probably asked you that. Why is it that the plane is able to remain steady on air? How is it happening? You could really take advantage of AI to explain a lot of these things. Or maybe your child asking you, why do we have elections? How do you explain that? Things like that. So yeah, there's reading and comprehension. This is also very good because for kids who are learning how to read, this can be very instrumental. There are very interesting tools out there that when you use them rightly, Google Home Assistant, for example, Alexa, you could really interact with them and you see how it helps your kid, learn to talk better or learn to construct their sentences better. Now, AI is also very, helpful when you come to step-by-step breakdown. The other day, I was, trying to look up something on consumerism, and then, it's really, very fundamentally how it explains it to you. So yeah, it could help in, discussing fractions and algebra, for example, breaking down, how do you solve, certain equations and all of that. Why algebra? In fact, where does the name algebra comes from? You can align all of that and really connect to it in a larger scale. Trigonometry, talking about shapes and all of that. How does it, work? Why is it that how you calculate a circle is different from how you calculate the area of a square or rectangle and all of that? Yeah. And then physics problems, gravity, talking about law of motion and all other things like that. Very important concepts that probably you as a parent, you have your strength, maybe in talking about some other aspect. Maybe your background is not in the sciences or your background is not in mathematics and all of that. And your kid approaches you. Let me just digress a bit. There used to come sort of that discussion where people will discuss maybe sometimes even before they get married, and they'll say, "Hey, are you good in maths? Because if we have kids, you're the one that is going to be handling the kids' maths assignment. I'm not good in maths." There used to be that discussion. But interestingly, today with AI, it really doesn't matter anymore. If you know how to use the tool very well, it would really solve that problem. Yeah, so that's just by the way. So yeah, literature analysis, in schools, at least in secondary schools, talking about, I think even in the junior secondary schools, it's equally done. You have books that your kids are given to read in literature and English classes, or even in English classes and all of that. There are so many books out there. Maybe in our time, we read things like Things Fall Apart, and other books like that, So yeah, how do you come up with a literature analysis of that kind of book? So yes, your kid can read it, pen their ideas down. With the ideas that they have penned down, they can then use these AI models to basically put it together in a proper essay and all of that. So yeah, there's all of that. And then discussing other aspects in government, in biology, understanding how governments work, the parliamentary system, the presidential system, monarchical, all of these things. Explaining it in a way that your kid really connects and understand. Now, like I mentioned also, it's something that, it could really help in improving learning, reading and writing. For our young kids who are just coming up and learning how to sound their words and all of that, sounding words especially, it's very important. You could actually use this to really help them. For that kid that is coming up, you could use things like Duolingo and other things like that to help them learn how to pronounce these words better and then correct their grammar and then also build their vocabulary. As they build the vocabulary, you also want them to learn how to put all of these words into proper sentences and also writing or rewriting their essays. So yeah, think about it from the perspective of that literature review assignment that your kid was given. They have finished reading the book, they have taken down points for each excuse me, for each point they noted as they were reading the book, and then now they want to put it together into a proper essay. This they can easily leverage AI on. And I think we'd equally look at that in one of the demos that we are looking at. Now, summarize passages, like I told you in WIEC, there's that comprehension, reading and comprehension section, for example. They could easily practice with that, talking about the summary section where they have to summarize passages, they could easily practice with that and it would equally help. Ultimately, all of these things come together to help our kids prepare better for WIEC, NECO, JAMB exams, their terminal exams in school, and other things like that. So yeah, it's very important. And it's actually cool because, when they are preparing for WIEC, one thing they could easily do is come up with multiple choice questions, open-ended questions, and then they practice. It could help them come up with flashcards. And I think we'll even look at, some of these things eventually. So yeah, learning language support, reading and speaking. One thing AI can do, particularly, for example, if you take a look at Notebook LLM, and in future as we have these discussions, because this is something we want to do often, you could look at how things like Notebook LLM can come up with a very interesting podcast for you. So you have a material that you put up there, and then it creates a discussion all around it, which is very exciting and very helpful. It could even be a concept that you take about something like maybe photosynthesis. You have the material all together. Now you want it to help you come up with a podcast. So yeah, you could do that. And then talking about tools like Alexa itself, your kid can interact with it and discuss ideas. And all of a sudden you'd see how your child, your daughter or son is learning how to speak better and interact better. So yeah, vocabulary practice, learning how to pronounce those words very well. Some of those complex words that you pronounce and they'll tell you, no, it's not like that. The E is silent, the F, P, H, all those kind of things. So yeah, this could really help them in pronouncing their words better and putting all of this, into sentences. How do you apply it when you come here? When does it change from a present tense to a past tense to a past participle tense? All of those kind of things, yeah. And now, talking about translation, I was given an example of this. So, yeah, someone is giving us a very nice idea. They use ChatGPT to create a guide for their kid. That's very exciting. That's really one of it. So yeah, as I was saying, at least during our days where I went to school, I had to do Yoruba as my Nigerian language, and I did Yoruba from JS2 up until SS3. But unfortunately for me, because the way the class is operated then, from the moment you entered the class, the teacher welcomed you with everything was basically in Yoruba. Unfortunately, I've even forgotten all those Yoruba words that that I picked up with so much difficulty. But what I'm driving at here is this. You see, if I had things like AI, then I would have most likely learned Yoruba much better, much more easily. It's the same thing with some of our kids who have to do Arabic in class or have to study Hausa or any of the other Nigerian languages. But when you're simply speaking in Yoruba from the beginning to the end, or in the language you're being taught, even French, you suddenly get lost if you don't have any way to practice it. And that is one thing AI can equally help them do. Now, talk about creative assignments. Those assignments that they give them to draw the map of Nigeria. You could come up with, how do they call it? With tracing lines for them using AI. There are actually so many tools out there that you can help them in doing things like that. Or that kind of assignments that the teacher gives and says, okay, go home, think about a topic or think about an idea and design something out of it. AI can actually help them in molding that idea that they have. Or it could even be an idea on something they want to do themselves, the kids, They come and the idea is half-baked. You can actually use AI to build it up into a more, complete idea. So drawing ideas using tools like Canva, some of us have probably interacted with it, but, the extent to which it can do things for us is actually very amazing. Or you talk about generating images with things like Sora, Nano Banana, and all of that. It's very, very exciting. Yeah. So slide outlines, for some of our kids, who have to do things like presentations or in schools out there, you could actually create it. And we would look at, something akin to that as we do this as well and get some ideas. So science fairs, yeah. They give them an assignment, come up with a science project on your own, and then you can actually interact with these AI models and come up with ideas on what it is you're going to do that is going to be exciting and how to even go about it. Now, there's also school prep competitions. Most of us, probably joined one or two extracurricular activities in school. Some of us went with the debate club, some went with the, maths geniuses and all of that. This can really help them prepare for all of those things, very, very well. Now, we've looked at all of this. At the end of it, there is a need to organize and put together all of this in a proper way. And this is also something AI is very, very good at. Particularly for me, I use it now because I work remotely a lot, and a lot of my projects, you have to actually organize it. Now, I have actually found that using AI, I'm able to structure my time. It gives you all the nuances in terms of, okay, this is the reason why this is more demanding. For example, if you guide your child and then they use AI a lot, it knows where their strengths are in terms of maybe the different subjects. When they are planning their study timetables, or even as you interact with it and tell it, it can actually tell you why you should probably allot more time to studying English than mathematics, even though mathematics might seem like what you should pay more attention to. So those kind of things, or maybe based on how you initially created it without the use of AI, you had unfortunately ignored maybe some other subjects to only once a week, and it could show you maybe why that is not a good idea. So yeah, you could really create proper study timetables, and like one of the attendees shared with us, that's something very exciting. So revision questions, this is actually very exciting and interesting because it could come up with questions. Right now, a lot of us have to probably bypass questions out there for our kids. But, with the materials out there, or, even using AI, you could actually come up with very exciting questions that your kids can actually use in practicing or preparing for their exams. Flashcards. You want to teach your kid how to sound words. You want to teach them how to prepare for spelling bee competitions. You could actually use flashcards a lot. And there are some other tools out there if you don't even want to create your own, that you could just leverage to do this, which is also very exciting. Prepare for mock exams. You don't want to wait for your child to go into the jam hall, before he starts practicing for his jam. So yeah, you can actually prepare questions, maybe 100 for each subject, and have them practice a lot, for them to get very well prepared for that kind of exams. And you'll find that it's actually very interesting because it gives you the answers and everything. And then with just a simple click, you're able to really see what you're doing or how well you've performed. How about preparing for revisions? So the term is about to come to an end. Interestingly, most of our kids are already on holiday, but looking at it from when they're about to go on holiday, sometimes they get so overwhelmed with classwork, they don't have any plan, for revision, or they do the revision, okay, yeah, so someone is asking, how do we ensure accuracy of the output? And yes, we'll take a look at that, but we'll definitely take a look at that. That's a very, very good question. Yeah. So, it could really help with preparing revision plans, just like you have study timetables and all of that. So, before we go on to the live demonstrations, I think I'll just probably, maybe we will take all the questions at the end of the session, just so that we don't lose train of our thoughts. But please keep on pushing the questions out here. It would really help us, handle this easily. Now, in talking about the live demonstration, we're going to look at, a few, just because of time, for the, purpose of time and all of that, we're going to look at four basic aspects: mathematics, accounting, physics, and writing. Writing, we are going to cover some aspects of that, and then we will look at how it all works. I hope that's good. Now, so we go on to that. Just a minute, let me share. Okay, so also for us to do this and do it very well, we're going to use it. We're going to use Gemini. Gemini is actually a tool that was developed by Google, and then it's basically their prompt engine for interacting with their model. I would like to believe you can all see my screen. Hassan, can you see my screen? Please confirm. Let's give a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Okay, that's amazing. Thank you very much. Okay. So I've equally, prepared some prompts. I'll take us through it so that, we're able to understand how prompting works. It's very important that, when you're prompting, one of the best ways you can actually get the best results, is to give the prompt a role. Now, something akin to the question I was asked earlier about, how to make sure that you're getting the right answers and all of that. I'm going to use the tool just to show you that, it's very accurate. Like I said, 99% of the time it's actually accurate, just that 1% of the time it goes into, hallucination and all of that. This is a platform. It's called myschool.ng, and then it's a platform that, has past questions out there for kids to, use or buy and things like that. Yeah. So we're going to take some questions here, or maybe one question, just so that we use it in practice and then see how it works. So I think we'll start with mathematics. This is physics. So let me just go and search for mathematics past questions. Where is, okay, yes, let's just take further maths. So this is further maths, yeah? Now, we could take any question here. I think maybe we'll just look at this question. Yes, we'll just probably look at this question here, this one, and then try to see how it functions, how it does well on it. Right. So first, I'm just going to prompt it, and then we can talk about it as we do. So for me, I like to be polite when I'm using AI. So I like to start with things like hi, just to interact with it. You could even just submit the hi, and then, you begin to interact. So yeah, hi. So next, I want to tell it. You see, so it's responding, hello, how can I help you today? Is there a specific project? Yes. So I'm going to give it a role. It's going to be my maths tutor. So I'll say you have, been hired, as my maths tutor. And just to save us time, I'm just going to paste, my prompt like I told you I prepared earlier, just so that it's faster for us and we don't take too much time, right? So, but what the prompt says, you have been hired as my maths tutor with years of experience teaching maths and helping secondary school students prepare for WIEC. Explain the following problem to me in a way I understand the concept and I am able to solve similar problems in the future. Don't just give me the answer. Explain it to me as someone who loves football. Recall I told you you can give it context. Giving it context helps you or helps the kid. So maybe your kid is, a lover of football. He always likes to watch football. How can he leverage that his thing that he loves, to understand these kind of problems? Yeah. So yeah, let's just copy this question and then give it and then see what the feedback is, right? So I'll paste this down here. It arranges it, and then we can shoot it and see how it does. So we give it some time. And interestingly, with all of these platforms, you have different levels. For some of them, you could tell it, give me this, explain it to me in detail and things like that. But let's see the response it is giving. So it says, hello, Coach Gemini here. Welcome to the training ground. So you see, it's actually applying football semantics into how it explains, the question and gives the answer. As your WIEC prep coach, I'm not just going to kick the ball into the net for you. So you see, it is telling it, I'm not just giving you the answer. I'm going to teach you the tactics so you can score against any team. Basically, the question WIEC puts in front of you. Let's look at this topic. So it now understands the topic by mere looking at what the question is, right? So the concept, the manager's playbook. So you see it's applying again semantics, in this case, as it relates to football into the question. Imagine a binary operation as a specific set of piece or a playbook instruction from the manager, giving him how to apply it. So now you see it is coming down here to really formulate the question. Think about A and B as two players, because you're, reducing this. The instruction tells you add the players together on top and divide them by the square root of their product. You see how it is bringing mathematics and football together to make sense to the kid, right? And ultimately, it goes down to explain it step by step, the match day, evaluating, this and bringing out the answer at the end of this. So you see, it is taking a step by step. Step one, the substitution, putting the players in position. Everywhere you see an A, put -3. Everywhere you see B, put -1. And you see it's applied it for him here easily, yeah? So step two, the attack, the numerator. It solves the numerator, and then it goes on to the midfield, the step three, and all of that. So you see, it's putting it all together, and then the Y pro tip rationalization, right? So it puts it all together and solves the question and gives him the final answer. And this is the final answer it has arrived at the end of the day. But it did not just return the final answer like a calculator would do. It actually explained it. It didn't also just explain it as just any random system out there. It explained it with the sport the kid loves the most, in this case, football. So, I mean, let's look at what the answer is here, right? It says -4 square root 3 over apologies. Okay, so yeah, and we can see that we have that answer here, -3, but is it the correct answer? So let us see what this particular platform also gives us the answer as well. And ultimately it is option B. So -4 square root 3 over 3, and we have our answer, right? So this is one way it can actually explain. And if you look at it, just like the teacher would probably explain, this is actually doing very well, and possibly maybe, if not, even a notch higher, because it is able to apply it to what the kid loves the most, in this case, football. This is one example. We could look at other questions. We could probably try another one. Let's just take another question, just for fun's sake. Yeah. So let's just take another question. We could say, okay, let's simplify this. Let's simplify this. And then we can put it here. So I'll probably say something like, okay, that's great. Okay, that's great. How about we solve this as well? Explain it to me. So I'm going to, just explain it to me like, someone new to maths, just for us to get some context and ideas on the extent of what we can do with this. And let us see if it gets the simplification. Another thing we could easily do is even use images. So say, for example, you're not able to copy, and, so let's say we are not able to copy like the way I'm copying it. We can actually add images, and I'll show you something similar to that in another example. So look, it has actually constructed the question, in a way that, we would understand it. So it goes on. It says the problem is like a counterattack. It is building on the instruction we gave it earlier to, explain it, like someone who loves football, right? And look at it. It has constructed the question for us, and then it goes on to explain the answer or the question step by step until it arrives at the answer. So phase two, the attack, rationalization, rationalizing the answer and all of that. And then it goes on. Now, the current score, this is what we have, the celebration, and then let us see the final answer that it gives. The final result is 2 plus square root of 3 all over 2. And let us see if that's the correct answer here. And now this is very important, right? So we would see that the answer here is actually 1 plus 1 all over 2 square root of 3. It's different from what it gave us, and we can challenge it. And this is the advantage. And we would see the response it will give. So let's tell it, this is the answer I got when I did it. Why is it different from yours? And let's see. And let's see what it will say. Why is your answer different from what I'm seeing here? Right? Let us see what it would say. And this is actually very interesting because, this is why you shouldn't just rely on the answer alone, but we would see the explanation. So it says, this is a great observation. This is like VAR, video assistant referee, again, in football terms. You are seeing something that looks like 1 exactly like this. And my final answer was this. Good news, they are actually the exact same answer. It's just two different ways of writing the final score, and that is very important here because maybe, you can now give it further instruction, reduce it to the end, and all of that. But that's the idea. So you get to understand all of this, and this is what will help the kid understand because now you realize what we spoke about earlier that you need to put in your effort and not just rely, right? And that is how we should train our kids. So you see, it goes on to explain how to arrive at 1 plus 1 all over 2 square root 3. And it's doing it for us here. Divide both sides by 2, and then it comes down to the final answer. And which one does y want? Both are correct. My version, this is usually called single fraction form. So you see, it's also explaining why that answer was the way it was the first time, and then finally what you have here, the other version. This separates the whole number from the sword. This is often how answers look like in multiple choice objective questions, and that is what it is, right? So, and then it goes on to give advice. If you're solving a theory question, either answer gets you full mark. If it's an objective question, knowing how to split the play, like we just did, helps you pick the right option, A, B, C, and that is what we need. So, of course, as your kids are interacting with these things, you give the instructions and then it provides you the guide as it should. Now, I think that probably gives us an insight into how we could use this to solve mathematics problems. We could then let's take a look at some accounting concepts here. Again, I have the prompt already prepared, so I'm just going to copy this and I'll paste it. All right, so now let me paste this and then let's just look at what the prompt is. It says, as my accounting tutor, I need your help to help me understand the following question. Don't just give me the answer. I need you to explain it to me like I'm hearing it for the first time. The accounting convention, which states that profit must not be recognized until realized, while all losses should be adequately provided for, is termed, let's correct this typo, is termed, so let's give it and see what it does. And then it's prompting, it's generating our answer. So it says, look at what it says here. It says, hello, I'm ready to switch hats from football coach to accounting tutor. So you see, roles are changing. And this is how you can easily apply these rules. The answer to your question is the prudence concept, also known as conservatism concept. Yeah? Now let's break it down. And it goes on to explain. It even takes an example, creates a company or things like that, and it goes on, right? And this is very, very important. This is powerful. Ordinarily, if you're studying, for example, with a jam pass question and you're just memorizing, let's take a look at it and see, if our answer is actually even correct. Again, I'll go back here. Let me just look for accounting, and then we can take a look at it. Just a minute. Just a minute. Okay, so we have it. Let's take accounting. I think accounting, yes. And then let us see if we can find the question. Okay, yes, so look at the question here. Yeah, the accounting convention which says the profit must be and all of that. And then we go on, let's see what it says. And the answer is option D, which is conservatism. But you see, if your kid was studying with a tool like this or with a website like this, all he's able to do is probably get the answer, guess the answer, right? No official explanation is available for this question at this time, But when you're using generative AI, it doesn't only explain it, it goes on to give you an example of why the answer is what it is. And in that way, your child lives with not just knowing what the answer is, but also understanding the concept such that tomorrow, even if he sees it in another form, he's able to quickly, get what the answer is. Now, we'll move on to the next, which is, our physics problem. Our physics problem is actually very interesting as well. I really enjoyed it. Again, I'm just going to paste the prompt so that we save time. And it says, as a physics extra lesson tutor, explain the following question in the most straightforward way to a young girl preparing to write WIAC. Two bodies, right? have masses in the ratio 3 to 1. They experience forces that, okay, they experience forces that impart to them acceleration in the ratio of 2 to 9, respectively. Find the ratio of forces the masses experienced. Now we'll put it here and then we'll look at it. All of this, we're doing it, giving the model a role so that it's able to explain. So it says, hello, welcome to your physics extra lesson. It's great to have you here. And you can see how it's actually making it real for the kid. Now, if you were to actually take this prompt and now go to Notebook LLM, you're able to create a conversation around it. And an interesting example will be, for example, taking material or telling Gemini, for example, to create material on conservatism and then going to Notebook LLM and creating a podcast. And then you can have your kids listening to the discussion by the individuals as they discuss the podcast. And you can give it a role, tell it to explain or discuss it in a very simple way a child will actually love. Now, it goes on to, solve the problem for us. And then finally, we get the answer at the end, which we are going to verify. And we'll just go straight down to that. It says the final answer is 2:3. And again, we're going to go back here and look at what we have in physics. Physics. Okay, we have physics here. And the question, here, so we have the question here, right? So what's the answer? Let us see. And this is from JAM 1999, so you can find it. It's quite interesting. So the answer is 2:3, and that is what we got. So all the while we've been getting the right answer. So it's just, emphasizing what I had mentioned earlier. 99% of the time, it's actually going to be correct, but still you have to be disciplined. You see, if you notice in the second question that we simplified, while it got the answer correctly, it did not, reduce it to the end, which is why maybe in a multiple choice question, the child would have easily missed that. But in this case, with a little bit more effort, just putting on a little bit more effort, the child is able to understand why it is so and equally get a better response. Now that we've seen this, the last one in terms of writing, I want us to look at it from a perspective of 3 parts. That essay, an example like I had discussed earlier is your child told to go home, come up with a topic that they would write on their own, because they do that, and then come up with what the writing material is going to be. So your child is lost on what topic to write on, and you want to help them, you want to interact with them, and you could do that. So let's look at this prompt that I prepared, and then we can all rub minds on it. So it says, hi, I was given an end of term assignment to write a narrative essay on any topic of my choice as a JSS3 student. All of this is done to give it context. So it knows I'm in JS3 and I was given the assignment. What is the kind of essay I'm expected to write? Narrative essay. One very important thing is, the way you structure your prompt really affects the kind of results that, you get, which is why it is important to help our kids begin to learn how to use tools like this. Because honestly, it is the future. The earlier they start learning how to prompt, the better they are going to be as they advance in life. So we move on. As my brainstorming buddy, right? I'm lost on what topic to choose, and I need your help on coming up with ideas, right? I need you to recommend 3 topical issues in Nigeria I can write on and a justification on why I should write on them. So we're telling it to give us topics. We could do it 2 ways. We could have done it 2 ways. We could have just told it, give us only the topics which you write on. In fact, we could have just said, suggest a topic for me, and then it will give you only 1 topic. And then no need to justify or tell me why I should write on them. But now we're giving it specificity, being emphatic on what it is we want, what it is we are looking for. So this, I'm going to put it out for now because I want us to see some other things it will recommend, right? And then we'll put it out here. So let us see the response we are going to get. And you could do this for anything: narrative essays, descriptive essays, argumentative essays. Your child is participating in a debate. They want to come up with topics. They want to come up with ideas. You could do that. So it says, hello, As a brainstorming buddy, I can definitely help you out. Writing a narrative essay means you're telling a story, right? Even though these are serious topical issues, your essay shouldn't sound like a news report, which is certainly true. It needs to have characters, maybe you or your friends, a setting, a plot, and emotion. So you see, it understands what is required of a narrative essay, which again in WIEC, you're most certainly going to be told to write one or two essays, So you understand what is required in those essays. It says, since you are in GES3, the examiners are looking for your ability to describe events clearly and show you how they affect and show how they affect people personally, right? And then it gives us some suggestions. The Japa syndrome migration, which is interesting. It tells us what the plot could be like, which is very good. Justifying. Now, remember that I told you this is an assistant. The decision ends with your kid, which is what we want. So they can look at these ideas now and decide on what it is they are going to write on. Says why you should write on this. It is justifying why the Japa syndrome is a good one. The rising costs of living, inflation, that's another one, which are all topical issues and interesting. And then the influence of social media and fake life. All of that, all of these are very good ideas. Let's get a thumbs up if we're together on this, please. Let's get a thumbs up. Are we together? Are we all here? Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So we could select anyone. Maybe we select the Japa syndrome, or let's take, social media, the influence of social media and fake life. That's unfortunately one reality we are dealing with today. Yeah. And then we could just go into that. So I'll tell you things like, oh, I like this. I like this. Like I told you, for me, I like to be polite. Yeah, it's just a machine, but I don't know. I just find it interesting. Thanks a lot. Right? I like the topic, and I've copied it, so I'm going to paste what the topic is. I like the topic, the influence of social media. Now what I want next. I've gotten the topic. I now want to know how to structure it, and I'm going to tell it to help me with that. I like this. I've selected the topic I want to, I'll tell it, I need your help. Need your help creating a structure for the article. So, and then we do that, and then it gives us a structure. So I'll tell it, I could limit it, because if I don't want it to return, I don't want it to go verbose and just, continue spinning a lot. I could just tell it, return only the structure. Your response should be the structure only, please. Right. So I do this, and then it's going to give me a structure for this. How do I, because that's probably the first thing you should do. You've gotten your article. Now you need to create a structure of what your article is going to be like before you now start writing on it, right? And you see it's helping. And then it even explains why it is like that. So it gives us a title. I don't know. You can see that it gives us a title of what our article is going to be like, right? Essay structure, the influence of social media and fake life. Title, the print of Instagram, the pop of reality, or simply behind the filter. And this is actually very interesting, because remember, it says to us narrative essays are like stories, and then you're expected to give a story. And then for us to do that very well, we want to actually, have characters behind it. So this is actually a very captivating, title. Probably if one writes it, it's going to be something that would excite a lot of people. So it tells us the introduction should be our hook. We should tie people in. And these are things that as your kids are interacting with, they're actually learning. Again, they are not just getting feedback. They are creating, an idea of how to go about writing articles. Yes, a teacher would explain oftentimes, but a teacher has his limitations. He is a person, he's a human being, right? He can only go so far. And probably in a class where you have about, 20, 30, 50 students, you can only go so far in explaining to all of them to understand. So having a body like this, is something that is very exciting and interesting. It empowers the kids to learn on their own and learn better, right? So all of that, it gives us the body one, body two, body 3, and then it goes on to conclusion, reflection, and morals. It tells us what it should all be contained in that. And we can go on even a step after this and say, okay, now I want to start writing the article. Let's correct this. Writing the article. I love the structure. And I want us to stick to it. And I want us to stick to it. Let's start with the introduction. Let's start with the introduction. What ideas? How do you recommend I start it? We could say things like that. How do you recommend I start it? I need ideas. So we do this now, and it is going to give us ideas on how to start the introduction. And so you see, when you build it on like this, you're seeing this, it's happening, and then you see the ideas it gives, you restructure it, you rewrite it to suit what you need exactly. And that's how you build, and that's how your kid equally grows. So it says things like, this is the most critical part of your essay. You need to grab the examiner's attention immediately so they actually want to read the rest of your story. And that's the truth. The opening is often the most important part. If you do it wrongly, you actually lose the attention of your audience. Yeah, so here are 3 different angles you can use. So you see, with this, it is actually building your kid to develop ideas on their head. You could actually even see some of the ideas it reads. So look at this, for example. The blue light of the smartphone screen was the only thing illuminating the dark, cramped room. To the 5,000 people following Prince Tunde or Prince whoever on Instagram, Tunde was a big boy, a student who spent his weekends at the cinema and his holidays in Dubai. His profile was a gallery of designer sneakers, plates, expensive pasta, and smiling selfies in air-conditioned malls. So this is very interesting. Let's just do one last prompt and then we move on from this. We could say, for example, I like this introduction. But some of the things, right, I'll tell it, but some of the things, or I'll tell it, make it more relatable in the Nigerian context, right? Make it more relatable in Nigerian context, right? And then it would rewrite this in a way. So you see, you're doing the thinking here. It is writing, but you're doing the thinking. You're telling it how to better structure it to make it more interesting, make it more, have a Nigerian tone, because maybe, cinemas and, going to malls and all of that is not really a Nigerian thing so much, so it makes it. It says, to the 5,000 people following Prince Tunde, Tunde was a certified big boy. And this is a common nomenclature, right? In a Nigerian thing, a certified big boy. The kind of student who spent his weekends at ShopRite. You see, these are things we know in Nigeria, right? Chilling in Lekki, that's it. So you see, you're molding it to write. It is being an assistant. It is writing based on your instruction. And you don't just come, what you've done here is not, you've not just come online and told it, write me an article, blah, 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 and move on. So this is very, very important and fundamental, right? Of course, I think, with this, you could easily continue to build on, on your ideas and all of that, and on how to go about it, right? So we'll go back to our slide. Now that we've covered all of our demo, what is the GenAI Bootcamp? I mean, parents, you've seen this, you've understood it, we've discussed quite interestingly quite a lot about it, how to help our kids learn smarter. Now what we want to know is, as a parent, you're probably not going to be available all the time. How do you actually empower your own kid to learn how to prompt on his own? How do you empower your kid to learn how to use these tools on their own? And that is where the GenAI Bootcamp program comes on, right? It's a program that was developed in-house, realizing this reality, helping children, take advantage of technologies of the future, be prepared for the future, and be able to actually use these tools, not just realistically, academically, but even in the future career prospects, And that is where comes this program, the GenAI Bootcamp. It's actually a 2-day virtual program where children will learn how to use AI safe and responsibly, how to use AI for their schoolwork and how to think critically with AI. The goal for this particular program that we designed is to actually empower the kid, give them that tool they need, they will use not just today, but equally in the future, you know. And then what will the kids equally learn? How to use AI for homework mastery, so they become very good and adept at using it. And then they can prompt and actually, interact with it in a way that it helps them expand their own horizon. It gives them a window into, what the future is looking like, or, what other parts of the world look like. AI for reading and writing, using AI to solve maths and science problems, coming up with creative assignments and preparing for exams, particularly for exams, because, there's a whole lot. Think about it. When you think of WAEC, NECO, JAM, you're being tested for a period of 3 years. It's not just the SS3 work that you're being tested on. Everything you did in SS1, 2, and 3, the child is being tested on. So they need this kind of, tools to help them really prepare better. And their ability to prompt very well and use these tools very well is what is going to give them the edge, is what is going to make the difference. Because in the beginning, they get your guidance, but the goal is at the end, they become independent and they're able to use it properly. Yeah. Now, the skills they are going to gain by joining this bootcamp is better comprehension, faster study habits, faster and even more qualitative study habits, improved writing ability. Because think about it, the way we started prompting to use this thing in, creating a very interesting article. This is something, when the kid does over and over again, he begins to get a clearer idea of, how to write with AI. So, of course, there's also the aspect of digital literacy. Now they are not just able to write, but they are able to equally, become more literate digitally. And finally, there is also the, independent learning culture they develop, and finally, confidence in the use of technology. So yeah, we're open for questions. And I think at this point we take questions and then we tell you how they can register, for those who are interested, of course, the idea is to boost confidence, build performance, learn modern digital skills, go ahead of their classmates. This is very fundamental and important. How can they actually get the edge? How can they do better? How do you set them up for success? And also there's a safe space on how, to use AI. They learn it from a safe space and they don't just learn it off the streets, right? So yeah, for the virtual training, is going to be, we're going to have a limited number, and I think we'll communicate with you. Hassan and the other team members will actually communicate. Our goal is to start it in January. It's going to be very much virtual. So, of course, you could set up your kids to sit down in the system, and then, we do that with them. And then, of course, we encourage you to register early so that, they don't miss out on this very interesting and exciting opportunity. Yeah, so this brings me to the end. We'll look at questions. Before we read the questions we have here, I don't know if we have from our audience, anybody who would like to unmute his mic and ask a question so that we're able to handle any gaps, please. Questions? Oh, yes, please. Hafsat, you have the floor.
Hello, good morning, Martella. Thank you for facilitating the session. I think you did well, and I picked up some tips. Um, my question is about the recommended age for joining a boot camp. I might have missed it, but at what age is it appropriate for a child to join this boot camp?
Oh, okay. Thank you very
Over.
much for the question. And a child from as early as a child in primary four can actually join. Our goal really is to just embed the skills in them, and then of course our content, provided they are able to interact and speak, they are able to actually they're welcome to join. Yeah. So anything from age age-appropriate class of primary 4, they are able to join. I hope that answers the question. All right, thank you very much. Any other question? Any more questions? Okay, I think we'll look at the chat. Some questions came in earlier. Okay, so ask if it was being recorded. We have a recording. AI hallucination, which is a fact. And then, okay, yeah, so someone said, recently I used Hubset, okay, to create a guide for my child's art and design project. And yes, that's something that is very doable. So yeah, how do we ensure accuracy of the output we get from AI tools? Yeah, so the accuracy thing is very important. And the idea is to basically double check every response. Where you see some unrealistic, suggestions, ideally you should go to more verifiable platforms. You could, if it's a news article, for example, you can check reliable news article platforms and then read on it rather than just taking the answer to that. So yeah, the idea is to really do the double checking and avoid as much, be aware that hallucination is very possible. Yeah, I think that answers it. Any other questions? Okay, I think if there are no questions, I'll hand over to our host, Hassan.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. In fact, everybody, let's please appreciate Murtala for this one session with a resounding virtual round of applause. I want to be here. I know it's virtual, but I want to be hearing it here. I'm not seeing enough hands, but thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. On behalf of 229 Consulting and everyone here today, I want to say a very big thank you to you, Murtala. Thank you so much. Thank you for breaking down AI to us in a way that is so clear, practical, and reassuring. I mean, you've showed us today that AI is not here to replace our children's thinking, no. And it's definitely not here to replace the parents. But then we can use it to support learning when used the right way. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. And thank you for sharing your knowledge so generously with us. And as we round up today's session, one key message stands out. AI is a tool, just like our calculators, our textbooks, even our phones that we use. It can help and it can distract. The only difference is guidance. Our children are growing up in a different world from the one that we know, or the one that we knew rather. But then our role as parents and guidance to make sure that is to ensure that what we guide, we ask questions, we set boundaries, and then we stay informed. And the good news is you don't even have to be a tech expert to even guide your child. You just need to be present and informed. And attending this session today is a great step in that direction. Now, when your child says, "Mommy, that assignment," at least now you can smile and then ask the right follow-up questions. And once again, thank you to our facilitator, Murtala. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. And thank you for trusting 229 Consulting. We hope this session has been really helpful. And please keep an eye out on our channels for our future trainings, also for sessions like this. And feel free to share what you've learned today with other parents. Can share it on our pages. We have our LinkedIn, our Twitter, and our Instagram, 229 Consulting everywhere. And you can also visit our website, 229consult.com. And, yes, thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. And we wish you and your children great success in their learning journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And God bless.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hassan.